good morning and welcome to your GE HealthCare Masterclass. I am Rosalind. I think most of you know me by now. And we have on this call today from my team, we have Marilisa, with whom I job share, Aurora, Paul, Gavin, who runs our Girls Get Set program in the Leeds area, and Lily, our other colleague, is going to join a little bit later on. So our team really encourages all of you to really immerse yourself in today's theme, which is the heart. So the first thing that we're going to do this morning is start with a riddle about something that relates to our theme. And I'm going to read that out in a moment. So each school is going to need to decide which of these 6 options on the screen is the correct answer. So here we go. I'm going to read this a couple of times. I am a highway with endless lanes, carrying cargo through arteries and veins. I never stop, both night and day, bringing life along my way. I'm just going to read that again. I am a highway with endless lanes, carrying cargo through arteries and veins. I never stop, both night and day, bringing life along my way. Yes, the answer is circulatory system. So that's just a little taste of what's to come in the rest of this hour we've got together. This session is all about the mighty muscle, the heart, its anatomy, its purpose, and diagnosing when it's not working properly. And that's something that is at the central purpose of GE HealthCare. So we're going to be covering, first of all, some key facts when I'll be handing over to my colleague, Paul. Then we've got an activity for you to really familiarize yourself with the heart and anatomy. That will really then help you, I think, to visualize things we're talking about for the rest of the session. Paul is then also going to really delve into GE HealthCare as a business and some of the medical technologies and diagnostics that we have to help doctors to diagnose heart disease. I don't know if you already know this fact. I have something I find really interesting, that in the UK, 2 out of 3 NHS hospitals have GE HealthCare medical imaging equipment in them. So that's things like MRI scanners or ECGs. So next time that hopefully you're not in hospital, but if you are, I'm sure you will actually spot our round GE HealthCare logo on lots of the different equipment. Then we're going to talk about the role of diet and lifestyle in heart health, and we're going to get you to work in pairs and have a nice discussion about that. And then we're going to actually look at the very latest science, a brand new radio tracer called Flyrcado, and Paul's role and his team's role in bringing that to the market, and talk about probably lots of jobs that I'm imagining you probably haven't heard of yet. So we want to make you aware of all the different types of jobs you could actually do in healthcare. So that's the plan for today. So without further ado, I will hand over to Paul to get started about the key facts.
So this is a picture of the heart. And, what is the heart? The heart is essentially a pump that sits in the middle of your body and pushes blood around to all your organs, all your muscles, your brain, and as well as the heart itself. In terms of size, so if you hold up your fist and just clench your fist, that there is roughly the size of your heart. And it sits slightly off center, slightly to the left, behind your ribs, in your rib cage, and your ribs protect your heart from kind of damage. And just for comparison, the size of a blue whale heart is about the size of a small car. For us, it's the size of your fist. The bigger you get, generally speaking, the bigger your heart gets, because it has to do more work to push a lot of blood around an awful lot of blood vessels in your body. And if you hold your fingers up, you've probably all done this at some point, either to your neck gently or to the inside of your wrist, and you'll feel your pulse. And the pulse is basically the blood surging through your blood vessels, and the blood vessels kind of kind of pulsing as the blood rushes through. So if you hold it there and if you could count for a minute, you notice that your pulse is somewhere between 60 and 100 beats within a minute. So that's your heart, that beating 60 to 100 times every single minute of every single day. So that means you're going through about 100,000 heartbeats every single day. And as long as you get to luckily live to 70 odd, that's going to be about 3 billion heartbeats in the course of your lifetime. And it goes all the time, every day. So it has to do an awful lot of work. And, you know, as we'll come on later, we have to look after it a lot. It pushes around 7 litres of blood around your body every single minute. And so the circulatory system, so all these tubes, you've got arteries that take blood away from the heart, and you've got veins that take blood into the heart, and you've got capillaries, which are these very small blood vessels that connect the arteries to the veins and feed blood to the rest of your body. There's about 60,000 miles of blood vessels inside a human. To give that some context, that will take you around the world twice, and then a little bit more. So the circumference of the world twice, and then an extra little bit as well. And all of that is crammed inside you. So, you know, that obviously means the blood vessels themselves that, you know, go from, you know, decent size to kind of the size of your finger to really, really kind of tiny blood vessels that kind of go through all your different muscles and kind of give them blood and oxygen. Yeah, your blood does lots of things. It's part of your immune system. It clots if you cut yourself, but its main purpose really is to deliver oxygen, nutrients, and glucose or sugar, energy to your muscles and your organs within your body, without which they wouldn't be able to function for very long at all. And finally, as well, what it does is, as your muscles use these kind of nutrients and use sugars, they create waste products. And the blood will take those away and will take them to organs like the liver and the kidneys, and will remove them from the body as well. So this is what your kind of heart does. It really moves blood around, which is essential for survival of all your kind of muscles and organs. I think with that, Rosalind, I'm passing back to you.
Okay, so for the next 10 minutes or so, you're going to be working from the worksheets that have been sent around to you. So we are going to be asking you to cut along the dotted line around the labels and functions on the first page. And your challenge, you've been given quite a few insights by Paul already, and there was a picture. So you may well have made some notes. But your challenge is to match the part to the function and then find them and stick them onto the diagram. As I mentioned, 10 minutes. If you're super speedy and have time to spare, there are some extra parts and functions on the second page as well for you to stick on. So we're going to share with you on the screen now, first of all, the labels for the heart diagram, the actual the parts. So I'm not going to read all these through. I'll just let you have a chance, each of you, to have a quick look, see how many you got right. The thing I always find hardest with anything inside my body is learning that when I'm looking at it on the screen, I need to visualize it. Okay, so that's the labeling. Okay, so the next part of the exercise. So as you can see, for each part, the function, so right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body via the vena cava and sends it to the right ventricle, etc. So left atrium oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein sends to left ventricle oxygenated blood goes into the aorta to supply the body. Right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs via the pulmonary artery. The aorta, largest artery in the body, pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs for oxygenation, and the mitral valve is the valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle that prevents the backflow of blood. And any of you that was super fast, those are the bonus ones as well. But without further ado, I am going to hand back to Paul, and we're going to start to think about GE HealthCare's role in heart disease diagnosis.
So as I said earlier, your fist-sized heart sits behind your ribs, inside your chest. So, you know, a doctor can take your pulse like you did and kind of see what your heartbeat's like. Doing that, has a stethoscope so you can kind of listen to your heart, but you can't really do much beyond that. You're not a car, you don't have a bonnet, you can't open you up and kind of have a look at your engine. And so what I'm going to kind of cover is how do doctors kind of, you know, have an understanding of what's happening in the heart when they can't actually see and visualize what it looks like and what's going on. So I'm just going to cover 3 different ways. There's lots of different ways that doctors can do this. And it's ways that we in GE, this is kind of what we do. We're not in medicines, we're in diagnostics. So we're looking at what is the problem. And then with that, you can get the right medicine to make sure you can fix that person, hopefully, and kind of make them healthy again. As I said, 3 different ways. I've had to pick 3 that are kind of very, very different. And the first one is called ECG. So ECG stands for electrocardiogram, which simply electro, because it's measuring the electrical kind of signals that happen inside your heart when it has a heartbeat. It generates electricity. And using this machine, you can actually measure that electricity. So electrocardio just means to do with the heart, and gram just means picture, basically. So electrocardiogram, it's taking electrical pictures of your heart. You see that gentleman there looking remarkably healthy, sitting in the hospital bed. He's got all these electrodes kind of round about the left side of his body, around the heart, measuring these electrical signals. And it will generate on the paper that comes out of the machine a trace that looks like that kind of black and white one at the top that I've labeled normal. And here you get the big spike that goes up. That's the kind of the big heartbeat. When you hear a dum dum, that's the big one. And then the little rounded peak coming after that is the little one, the atrial valve. So the heartbeats are caused by the valves inside your heart slamming shut. That's what that noise is that you can kind of hear when you do that. So dum dum, because it's 2 sets of valves. And you can see here he has a nice rhythm. The electrical currents are fine, and he's very healthy. And then I've added in a couple of pictures below that just to give you an idea of, you know, what a doctor would be looking for. So you can see the second one, largely the heartbeat shape looks fine, but in this patient, the heartbeats are spread further apart than you would expect. And so this is called bradycardia. Brady just means slow, cardia just means heart. So it's a slow heartbeat. And this patient probably would feel okay most of the time. But then once they started doing exercise, once they started putting the stress on the heart to kind of make it work quicker, push more blood around the body, suddenly that patient would find that they were starting to feel kind of tightness in the chest or uncomfortable, or they'd be out of breath. And that would be enough, hopefully, to take them to the doctors. The second trace there, which is the kind of yellow one, hopefully you can see quite clearly that the shape of the heartbeat is entirely wrong. You've got the good heartbeat as it pushes blood around the body, but you don't really have a clear second heartbeat. And this is atrial fibrillation. So it's where the top chambers of the heart, the ones that collect the blood, they're not really working very well, and they're not squeezing as they should do, and they're kind of fluttering. And again, this patient would probably know about this. You know, they feel a little bit unwell. They'd certainly feel out of breath if they were doing anything strenuous. And what this does is, you know, allows the doctor to know, you know, if the heart beating properly, is the managing to push the blood around, are there problems here? And depending on what the reading is from the ECG will define, you know, does the patient need to go on certain kinds of drugs? Or quite often, does the patient need to go and have another study to look at the heart in greater detail to get a better understanding of what is happening to the patient? So this is one of the things that patient might then go on to kind of have a look at. kind of a machine that would then look at their heart. So as you can see, this is a big machine. It sits in a room on its own in a hospital. It's like a donut. So the patient would go into the middle of that ring, and the ring itself is just basically it's a massive magnet. So much so you're not allowed to wear metal jewelry inside the room. If you did, your watch would fly across the room. It would stick to that machine. It would be extremely difficult to prise your watch off that magnet. It's that strong. And what this does, this kind of MRI machine, is it will be able to take pictures of you from the inside in kind of plane. So in like little slices in any direction. So you can see here the slices down the middle of the person, but it could do it across the person or any angle and stuff like that. And so if you look at the picture that you get out, which is this kind of black and white picture in the middle, try and work out, this is down the middle of a person, try and work out where you think the heart is. That's the heart. So it's cut through the middle of the heart. You can see it's quite big. It's all squished in there because you've got all your other organs. And what the doctor will be able to do is use pictures like this to kind of see, is the heart, does it look fine? Looking at the valves. So you've just labeled the heart, you've labeled the different valves. Do they look fine? Is the blood moving around in the way it should do? Is the heart pulsing in the way that it should do? Are there blockages or holes or things that shouldn't be there? Are there cancers and other things that would show up with an MRI that are causing problems? And again, this would then allow them to be able to work out, what kind of treatment a patient wants to do. So kind of you look to the first one, which is ECG, which is around the kind of the output of the heart. This one is much more structural. It's kind of, how does it look? Is it kind of looking like a normal, healthy heart should do? And what I'm going to jump to next is a way of looking at the function of the heart. Is the heart working like it should do? And this is also kind of leading to the project that I've been working on for the last 3 years. So as I mentioned before, the heart beats, 3 billion times in your lifetime. So 100,000 times a day. It uses 11.5 liters of oxygen every day, and it has to make 6 kilograms of ATP. So hopefully you can remember from your biology classes that ATP is the form of energy that cells use in a kind of a cyclical fashion. And it has to create this little thing that's the size of your fist, has to create 6 kilograms of ATP every single day. So that means it's going to need its own blood supply all the time. And it has to have a very, very good blood supply because it's working harder than every single other organ that you have in your body. And it needs constant blood flow. And it gets its blood through these kind of cardiac arteries that you can see arrowed on the left there. Big, thick arteries that kind of wrap around the heart. There's I think about 3 of them, 3 big ones that kind of wrap around the heart. They kind of branch out into smaller blood vessels and smaller blood vessels as well. And these arteries, they're like garden hoses. So, as long as you've got a nice clear hose, the blood will flow through it. It'll be fine when you're at rest. And then when you do exercise, play football, volleyball, netball, whatever you're going to be doing, then your heart starts working and needs more blood. These blood vessels will be able to provide that, and it will be absolutely fine. What happens with kind of bad diet, lack of exercise, age, and other things is that fats can build up inside your blood vessels, inside these kind of garden hose like structures, and they can stick to the walls of your blood vessels. And then once you've got a little bit sticking, a little bit more kind of catches on. And these things are called plaques, and they can grow inside your blood vessels. And what will happen there is you might not notice if you're just walking around or sitting down watching television because enough blood can pass through your arteries to feed the heart. However, what will happen is when you do exercise and your heart needs more blood, is you can't get enough blood through the tubes, through the blood vessels to feed your heart. And again, you'll start to feel noticeably, unwell, short of breath, because your heart can't work as well. It can't push enough blood around to the rest of your body. So you start noticing it and start feeling it. So then this is the kind of what we've been developing here, which is an agent for a PET machine. So it looks a lot like the MRI earlier, but it's a very different kind of machine. So PET stands for positron emission tomography, which is a fancy way of saying it takes pictures of emitted radioactivity. So what we do is we would inject the patient with a small amount of a radioactive compound. This compound will go to the heart, and it will go to the heart linked to the amount of blood flow. So the more blood flow that goes to the heart, the more of this radio labeled compound will go to the heart. And then this machine here, this kind of big donut, again, the patient sits in the middle of it, and it will be able to detect where that radioactivity is coming from. And it will generate, again, pictures in different slices and different planes through the heart. And kind of tell the doctor, is the tissue, is the heart muscle getting enough blood? Is it getting enough oxygen, nutrients to be able to work properly? And so I've given the pictures. These are very different to the MRI pictures. They don't look like a heart because all you're looking at here, if we just take the first one, which is a circle, is if you cut through the heart, you've basically got a ring of muscle. That's the kind of the ventricles that push the blood around. And there, so you can see the ring of muscle around the heart, and the brighter that muscle is, the more blood it's got, or the more perfusion. So the more blood can get into that part of the heart. You can see there, it's fine. It's all nice and bright when the patient's resting. However, as I mentioned before, you often don't see the problems until your heart is having to really, really work hard. And so what they'll do with these patients is then they'll put them onto a treadmill and they'll get them to run as fast as they can, and then they'll image them again. And that way, what will happen is if there are problems, they'll start to see darker patches that, bright patches, lots of blood, all is good. Darker, bluer patches rather than the kind of orange and yellows is where suddenly, under conditions where your heart needs more blood, it's not getting the right amount of blood. And what a doctor will do this. It will compare, as I say, the resting and exercise images. And from that, we'll be able to work out what's happening to the patient. Is their heart working properly? What do they need to do? And for example, one of the things that the doctors might do is do what's called a stent. So they'll know that the blood vessel, feeding that part of the heart is blocked. And so they'll go and put in a little balloon and a little cage that will try and open up the blood vessel so that you can get more blood through it. Or you'll have a bypass, so where you have an extra bit of blood vessel that they attach that bypasses where the plaque is, because you can't really remove the plaque itself. Once it's embedded, it's very difficult to move. So this will tell the doctor what to do and really define where the patient needs to go next for their treatment. Now you get to be that doctor. You get to look at two sets of images. You've got image A, image B. At the top, you've got the normal resting image. So the patient's not exercising. It's not putting the heart under a lot of stress. And then at the bottom one, you can see that the heart is where they've got the patient to exercise. The heart's under a lot of stress. So the question then to you is, the doctor, this patient has come to you and then wants to understand what's going on. One of these is a healthy heart, and one of these has problems and has a limitation of blood flow that's called ischemia. The question to you is, which one is the unhealthy heart? B is the correct answer. So yeah, you can see on the bottom one there that we've got some darker patches on the circle, between kind of 5 and 9 o'clock, and then on that kind of the sideways U again at the bottom bit there, you can see there that's all blue. So this is parts of the heart, the bits of the muscle that are not getting enough blood when the patient is exercising. A concern for that patient and would need some interventional treatment. And with that, I think I'm passing back to you, Rosalind.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. I've certainly learned a lot from you, such an expert on all of it. really clear description. So thank you very much. So Paul has talked to us a little bit about blood flow and what can happen if too much plaque builds up inside our garden hoses. I like that analogy. So we would like you now to get into pairs and have a discussion. This should be on your final worksheet that we've given you. Have a discussion about 10 food and lifestyle factors that can influence heart health for better or worse. So we want you to, between you, agree between 1 and 10 for each of these different options. So 1 is very bad for the heart and 10 is super healthy. Okay, so we're going to reveal the answers now on the screen. So I think in general, my takeaway from this is that I think in general, we tend to know roughly what's healthy or unhealthy for us. But for me, the ordering of some of these things was a bit of a surprise. So for example, I wasn't sure whether exercise or eating lots of fruit and vegetables were more important. And actually, that's quite recent research that's been leading scientists to conclude that a healthy diet is even more important than regular exercise. You'll probably start to realize more and more as you're getting older that the science, is changing for lots of things, and it's really important to read into that and kind of realize that things do evolve. Also, so sleep, for example, our bodies repair themselves and clear out the junk while we're sleeping. So that's an important thing too. I think in general, it's good to try to do all the things between 5 and 10. Quick summary: eat lots of fruit, vegetables, and healthy fats like nuts and fish. Exercise to keep your heart strong. Drink water, enough water, and avoid too many sugary drinks. And avoid too much junk food, which contains unhealthy fats, because taking care of our hearts means taking care of our whole bodies. I'm going to hand back to Paul. He's going to talk a little bit more about Flyrcado. Apparently you pronounce it slightly French way, I can tell you. And look at all these different people on the screen here that have helped bring it to market, including Paul. So back to Paul again.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so this is just covering the project I've been on, as I said, for about 3 years. We've just literally at the back end of last year taken a new drug, so the radioactive chemical that you inject into people that you looked at the images of. And we got that into the US market last year. And this whole process that I've got on the screen is about 15 years of work. So it's a long period of time to take something from an idea into, being able to use it in patients, because you have to do a lot of things to get it right. But I wanted to kind of just highlight a little bit that it's not everybody in lab coats. I'm looking out onto the office here, and there isn't a lab coat there at all out of all the people that are here that I can see. And there's a lot of different opportunities, some of which are kind of, very the traditional science roles, and some of which, people build up a good scientific understanding, but are not science roles. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes just to walk you through that. I've just kind of labeled out 3 broad areas of development of a new drug. You have to design it, you have to make it. And that involves, I guess, the more traditional scientific roles that people think of, the chemistry roles, because you're making a chemical structure. The radiochemist in our case, because you have to stick your radio label onto it, the radioactive part. Biologists, which was my original role, because you have to work out how it works, where does it go, what does it do, does it do what you want it to do, is it safe, so does it not do what you don't want it to do. So they're the kind of traditional roles. As it moves through the development phase, then we kind of, once you've got it, you know what it is, you know what it's doing, then you have to really prove it works and prove it's safe. So, one of these that you might not necessarily think about is that mathematics comes into this. To show it works, you have to use mathematical modeling or statistics to show that, when you give somebody a treatment, it is better, statistically better, than when you don't give them a treatment. Or in our case, a diagnostic will give you the right answer more than it gives you the wrong answer, or an alternative strategy will give you the right answer. And again, you've got jobs like regulatory affairs, which is just a fancy way of kind of saying people who work with the guidelines and the regulatory authorities. So it's known as the MHRA in the UK, but this is the authorities that look at medicines and drugs and diagnostics and kind of they work out, do they work? Are they safe enough? And a lot of that is covered by guidelines. We have to do certain things to make sure that we're meeting those guidelines. So regulatory affairs have a bit of scientific understanding because they need to know what we do, but also they're more kind of focused on what is it that these government authorities need for us to be able to prove to them that our drug is effective. And then, so my role the last couple of years has been the program leader. This is basically, I just get to tell other people what to do and organize them, make sure they're talking to each other, making sure that bits of information pass around and that we're coordinated. And these are big groups. I mean, my group that I've been interacting with is about 150 people. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of coordination, making sure that things are working properly, making sure that we're highlighting and understanding problems as we go through the process. I've also highlighted what we call supply chain. So this is literally making it. Obviously, to sell it in the market, we have to be able to make it, but it's not just the chemists that make it. We have to make sure, again, that it's safe, that when these come in little vials of liquid, there's no little particles. So we have to make sure that we can test for that. We have to box them. We have to put labels on them. We have to ship them into the right place, make sure that we can actually ship these drugs into other countries and stuff like that. So there's a large number of people there. Again, they're not wearing white coats, so it's not necessarily your traditional scientific roles here. And then I've just highlighted what we call market access. So, we've made the drug, we've shown it's safe, we've got approval, we've got it to the market, but the customer, and for us, the customer is usually hospitals. The customer has to be able to pay for it. And each country has a very complicated system of how do hospitals get money to pay for certain drugs. So market access, that's what they do. They help the hospitals work out, whether it's a kind of a coding in the US where they have to say, we used this here, this drug under this code, therefore we want this amount of money back. Or in the UK, there's NICE that you might have heard of, which is getting approval. So you have to give them enough information, again, that they think the amount that we're charging for the drug is commensurate with, how much it should cost, plus how much they're willing to pay for it. So there's a lot of different kinds of jobs here that take a drug from very early stages to end stages, and they're not all scientific. There's a lot of opportunities here for different people with different skill sets to interact. And I'd say overall, although I've worked with 150 people, there's probably been about 300 odd people, maybe even more, who have worked on this product kind of over the 15 years. So the other bit I just want to highlight is that out of all of this team, 5 of them, give or take, that I worked with were medical doctors. That's all. So, the vast bulk are not medical doctors. People have qualifications from kind of A-level qualifications through to PhDs and a whole range. There's a large range of skill sets, of experience that people bring into what we do to make this work. And all of them are really important to kind of getting the product out the door and getting into patients so that we can start making a difference to the patients. And the other bit I want to highlight, because I went through the 150 people that I work with and just worked out, and there were 56% of them were women. So, this is a good thing. We're obviously trying to get girls into science. This is a career choice that a lot of other people have made in all these different areas. It's not male dominated at all here. And I think, we are better for it as well. So, consider that it's not just the white coats and the chemists and biologists here. There's a lot of different roles, and whatever your skill set, somewhere in this kind of cycle of drug development, there will be a role for you.